The forest whispered secrets on the night Jackson Mercer's life changed forever. Moonlight spilled through pine branches as he walked the familiar path to his remote cabin, the scent of rain-soaked earth filling his lungs. 3 years of self-imposed isolation had dulled his senses to most surprises, but nothing could have prepared him for what waited in the clearing ahead. A soft glow emanated from behind his woodshed, pulsing like a heartbeat. Jackson's hand instinctively moved to the hunting knife at his belt as he approached cautiously. The light wasn't from a fire or a flashlight, it was something else entirely. "Who's there?" he called, voice steady, despite the thundering in his chest. The light dimmed immediately. Silence stretched between heartbeats before a feminine voice answered. Accent unlike anything he'd ever heard. "Please. No harm." Jackson rounded the corner and froze. A woman crouched there, her bare feet muddied, wearing what looked like a torn silver garment that barely covered her slender frame. But it was her skin that held him transfixed, shimmered with an opalescent glow, faint patterns tracing beneath the surface like constellations. "You're hurt," he said, noticing the dark liquid that pooled beneath her side knot, red like human blood, but iridescent blue. Her eyes met his violet irises with silver flecks that seemed to capture starlight. "They will come for me. Should run." Instead of fleeing, Jackson removed his jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. "I'm not much for running these days. Name's Jackson, and you are." "Nira," she whispered, testing his name on her tongue. "Jackson, this is not wise." He smiled, the expression feeling foreign on his face after so long. "Wisdom's overrated. Can you walk?" When she stumbled trying to stand, Jackson lifted her easily, surprised by her lightness. Inside his cabin, he set her on the couch and gathered medical supplies. Then, the wound on her side seemed to seal itself slowly, the edges knitting together with that same strange glow. "You're not from around here," he stated plainly. Dampening a cloth to clean away the blood, Nira's lips curved slightly. "That obvious?" The glowing skin was my first clue. Jackson handed her a cup of hot tea. "Second was the blue blood. Third was the fact you're healing before my eyes." She accepted the tea with delicate fingers. "I crashed in your forest. Escape pod will self-destruct soon to eliminate evidence. Others follow me, dangerous ones. Why are they after you?" Nira's gaze dropped to her hands, where intricate patterns flared brighter. "I carry something they want. Something that could change the balance of power in 3 galaxies." Jackson should have been frightened, or at least skeptical. Instead, he felt more alive than he had in years. "Well, they'll have to go through me to get it." "You don't understand what you're saying," Nira warned, her voice softening with something like concern. "These hunters have destroyed entire civilizations."
"Outsize."
The wind picked up, branches scratching against the cabin walls like fingernails. Jackson checked the locks on his doors and windows. "I was a soldier once," he said quietly. "I know something about hunters." Nira studied him, her luminescence brightening slightly. "Why would you help someone not of your world?" Jackson considered. This, as he stoked the fire. "Maybe because I haven't felt part of this world for a long time." In the distance, a low rumble shook the forest floor. Nira tensed, her eyes widening. "They're coming," she whispered. "The Varaxians have found me." The forest trembled as 3 black ships descended through the night clouds, their engines emitting an ominous hum that made Jackson's teeth ache. He peered through the cabin window, watching as searchlights cut through the darkness. Nira explained, her voice tight with fear. "Elite hunters.
Eyes."
They track energy signatures across galaxies." Jackson retrieved his old military footlocker from beneath the floorboards. Inside lay remnants of his past, a combat knife, tactical gear, and a modified pulse rifle he'd forgotten to return. His fingers moved with muscle memory as he loaded. "The weapon. It's patterns on your skin," he observed. "They're getting brighter." Nira nodded. "The essence within me responds to danger. It's difficult to conceal." A crash from outside announced the hunter's arrival. Heavy footsteps circled the cabin as Jackson positioned himself between Nira and the door. "When I say, run, head for the cellar trapdoor behind the bookcase," he whispered. "There's a tunnel that leads to a cave system. The door splintered inward. A figure stood silhouetted against the night, over 7 feet tall. Humanoid but wrong somehow, with armor that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Behind the intruder, 2 more shapes moved in the darkness. Return the celestial shard. Female, the leader demanded, voice like gravel crushing bone. Emperor Kroll offers mercy if you surrender now. Jackson fired without warning. The pulse blast struck the Varaxian's chest plate, causing it to stagger but not fall. Human interference. It growled, drawing a serrated blade that hummed with energy. Unfortunate. Run. Jackson shouted, firing again to provide cover. Nira darted toward the bookcase as Jackson engaged the hunters. The leader swung its blade, missing Jackson by inches as he rolled aside. The second hunter deployed a net of crackling energy that Jackson barely avoided, cornered against his kitchen counter. Jackson grabbed a canister of fuel he used for his generator and hurled it at the invaders, shooting it midair. The explosion rocked the cabin, sending the Varaxians tumbling backward through the shattered door. Jackson scrambled through the bookcase entrance, finding Nara waiting in the narrow tunnel beyond. Together they fled deeper underground as the cabin blazed above them. You're home, Nara said regretfully, her glow illuminating their path. Just wood and memories, Jackson replied, guiding her through the winding passage. Nothing worth dying for. They emerged into a cavern where a small underground stream flowed. Jackson stopped. 2 listen-distant crashes echoed from behind. They'll track us, Nara said, touching the patterns on her arm. I cannot hide this light. Jackson studied her for a moment, then removed his thermal blanket from his pack. Maybe we can mask it. At this around you, it's designed to block heat signatures. As she covered herself, dimming her glow, Jackson unexpectedly reached out. To touch her cheek, the contact sent a pleasant shock through his fingertips. Why risk your life for a stranger? She asked softly. Jackson's expression hardened. I've spent 3 years hiding from everything. Maybe it's time I stood for something again. A roar echoed through the cavern. The hunters had found the tunnel. We need to move, Jackson said, taking her hand. And when we're safe, you're going. To tell me exactly what's worth chasing across the stars? Dawn broke over the mountains as Jackson and Nara reached an abandoned ranger station deep in the wilderness. Inside, dust covered everything, but the structure was sound. Jackson secured the perimeter while Nara sank wearily onto a chair, her luminescence dimmed to a faint pulse. We've bought some time, Jackson said, setting down his rifle. The stream should have masked our trail. Nira removed the thermal blanket, revealing her arm where the patterns had formed into intricate spirals. Time is something I have precious. Little of Jackson found a first aid kit intended to a gash on his forearm. I think I've earned some answers. She nodded slowly, standing to approach the window where first light painted the forest gold. I am Nara Solostis, heir to the Lemurian celestial throne. My world exists in a dimension parallel to yours where light and energy are the primary forms of matter, and those hunters, Varaxians, serve Emperor Kroll, who seeks to harness our power. My people are peaceful scholars and artists. We were unprepared for war. Her voice broke. I escaped with our most sacred relic. She placed her hand over her heart, and suddenly the patterns on her skin coalesced, revealing a crystal embedded in her chest that pulsed with inner fire. The celestial shard, she explained. It contains the collective knowledge and essence of my ancestors and the power to control the stars themselves. Jackson stared, mesmerized by the light. Control stars? Listen. Ignite them. Extinguish them. Harness their energy. Nara's eyes met his. In Kroll's hands, it would mean the end of countless worlds, including Earth. Jackson ran a hand through his hair. And you brought it here not by choice? My ship was damaged in the escape. Her expression softened. I'm sorry to involve your world in our conflict. Jackson surprised himself by laughing. Lady, I was a Force Recon Marine who came home to find nothing worth fighting for. Now aliens are invading because of a star-controlling crystal. It's almost refreshing. Something changed in Nara's eyes, a flicker of connection. She approached him, slowly reaching out to touch the scar that ran along his jaw. You carry wounds deeper than flesh, she observed. Don't we all? Jackson caught her hand, an electric current seeming to pass between them. The moment shattered as a distant alarm blared from the device on Nera's wrist. "They've found my pod's remains. They'll triangulate our position soon." Jackson checked his ammunition. "Then we need a plan. We can't keep running." Nera's expression hardened with determination. "There is one possibility," ancient texts speak, "of Lumerian outposts on Earth from millennia ago. Places of power where the veil between dimensions thins. You think one's nearby?" She nodded. "The patterns guide me. There's a site in these mountains, a gateway that could allow me to channel enough power to send a distress call to my people." Jackson studied her face, searching for doubt but finding only resolve. "How long would that take?" "Hours to reach it, minutes to activate." She hesitated. "But once I begin, the energy surge will attract the Varaxians instantly. So we need a defensive position and a distraction." Jackson began gathering supplies. Good thing defense was my specialty. As they prepared to leave, Nera caught his arm. "Jackson, if we succeed, my people will come. But if we fail," he covered her hand with his, "then we fail together." Ancient stone columns thrust from the mountainside like broken fingers reaching for the sky. The ruins, hidden within a natural amphitheater of rock, hummed with strange energy that made Jackson's skin prickle. "The gateway," Nera whispered reverently. Approaching the central dais, where symbols matched those on her skin, untouched for thousands of years. Jackson surveyed the single, narrow entrance to the ruins. Defensible position. Good sightlines. He began setting traps with the explosives he'd scavenged from the ranger station. Nera knelt at the center of the dais, placing her palms on ancient handprints embedded in the stone. The celestial shard in her chest pulsed brighter, and the ruins began to respond, dormant lights flickering to life along the columns. "How long?" Jackson asked, positioning himself behind a fallen pillar with his rifle. "I must align my energy with the gateway," she replied, closing her eyes in concentration. "Perhaps 20 minutes." Jackson nodded grimly. "Then I'll buy you 25. The mountain air grew heavy with ozone as Nera channeled power through the ancient structure. Above them, clouds swirled unnaturally, and the sky darkened as if night were falling prematurely. Jackson's radio crackled. The motion sensors he'd placed in the forest triggered one after another. "They're coming," multiple signatures. Nera's eyes snapped open, now glowing with intense light. It's Commander Dravik himself. "I sense his presence. Friend of yours?" "He slaughtered my family," she said, voice tight. "He will not take me alive." Jackson checked his weapon. "He won't take you at all." The first explosion echoed through the mountains as Varaxians triggered Jackson's perimeter traps. He waited patiently as dark shapes moved among the trees, picking his targets carefully. The first hunter to breach the clearing fell to Jackson's precise shot. The second managed to fire a bolt of energy that scorched the stone beside him before a second shot found its mark. Then Dravik appeared larger than the others, his armor adorned with trophies from conquered worlds. Behind him marched a dozen elite guards. "Impressive for a primitive," Dravik called out, his voice a metallic rasp. "But futile." Jackson responded with gunfire that the commander deflected with a shield of energy. The Varaxians spread out, trying to flank him. "Just a little longer," Nera called, her body now hovering above the dais, surrounded by a corona of light that connected to the swirling vortex forming above the ruins. Dravik seemed to understand what was happening. "Stop her," he commanded, and his soldiers converged on the dais. Jackson abandoned his cover, sprinting to intercept them, tackled the nearest hunter, using the alien's own momentum to send it crashing into its companions. An energy blast caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around but not stopping him, fighting through pain. Jackson placed himself between the advancing Varaxians and Nera, firing until his weapon overheated. Dravik approached, towering over Jackson. "Your species always amazes me with its pointless bravery. We're full of surprises." Jackson grinned through bloody teeth, revealing the detonator in his hand. The explosion collapsed part of the entryway, crushing several Varaxians beneath tons of rock. In the chaos, Jackson drew his combat knife and launched himself at Dravik with reckless abandon. The Varaxian commander caught him by the throat, lifting him off the ground. You die for nothing, human. The shard will be ours. Look again, Jackson choked out. Above them, the vortex had become a blinding column of light connecting the ruins to the heavens. Nera's voice echoed with power. The beacon is lit. The Lumerians come.